complete, and I love you so. Love me tender, love me true.
We can like many, but we can love only a precious few. Because it is for those precious few that you have to be willing to do so very much. But you don't have to do it alone. Lincoln Financial helps you provide for and protect the financial future of those you care about most. Because this is what you do for people you love. Talk to an advisor. Lincoln Financial. You're in charge.
Hello and welcome to nrnplus.com/live, our virtual town hall rally. And we're here tonight. Today's town hall is based on issues for the MAGA American First policies. And we are streamed by some of our partners, such as vetsfortrump.com. Simultaneously, we had a rally this weekend. It was highly successful. And it was followed on Twitter by Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and seen by tens of thousands. It was so successful that one of our featured candidates that weekend is back tonight. Her name is Tricia Flanagan. This entire town hall rally is about America First policies, the policies that our president has supported and endorsed for the last 4 or 5 years. And these candidates are firmly behind him. They understand the stakes. They understand what is at stake in winning not only the House and Senate and the presidency and what that means for the next 4 years. I'd like to introduce our first speaker. And first speaker is on Trump's campaign advisory board. And he's going to join us. His name is Lieutenant Stephen Rogers. Lieutenant Rogers, take it away.
Well, thank you so much for your invitation. It's certainly a pleasure and honor to be with you this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, as a retired U.S. Navy commander and elected official, I know when a person has leadership skills that can be of great benefit, of great value to keeping not only America strong and safe, but particularly in keeping our state of New Jersey strong and safe. Now, I found that one person in this state with such leadership skills to be Tricia Flanagan. We know she's running for the United States Senate in New Jersey, and believe me, against all odds, like our president was against all odds, Tricia Flanagan is going to win this race. Tricia is not an insider. She is not an outsider, but instead she is on the people's side. And that's something we must keep in mind as we move forward. She's a fighter who is determined to take the fight for our state and for our country directly to the doorsteps of the Democrats and socialists who are working so very hard to do what? To take our right to bear arms away, to take our right to free speech away, to take our right to assemble away, even our right to worship God Almighty and the right to life, they want to take away. What we have lived through in this state, right here in New Jersey, and in states all across the country, we have lived through policies that divide our people, that have destroyed trust in the police, and they have taken control of our government from the people and handed that control to a small group of politicians who have done what? Who have embraced the policy of Marx, of Lenin, and of Stalin. And the Democrat socialists in New Jersey are telling the people to shut up and sit down. Tricia Flanagan is telling the people of New Jersey to stand up and be counted. She has articulated the voice of the President of the United States, not only when she decided to run for office, but way before she ever thought about getting involved in the political process. The Republican Party in New Jersey needs to elect a candidate who not just by words, but by deeds does what? Embraces the Constitution of the United States, embraces the foundations of God, of family, of duty, of honor, and of country. Like our president, Tricia Flanagan is not ashamed to use the word God and country in the same sentence. And we need to embrace the God-given gift of liberty and freedom. Tricia Flanagan is the person who will open what? She's going to open the locked gates that have held back New Jersey's 1,000 point of lights that President George Bush talked about in his time. Tricia Flanagan is the person who will open that locked gates that have held back New Jersey residents from doing what? From entering the shining city on a hill that President Ronald Reagan talked about in his time. Tricia Flanagan is the person who will open up the locked gates that have held back the people who want to do what? Who want to make America great again and make New Jersey great again, as President Donald J. Trump has talked about in his time. Now is our time. Now is our time to elect a leader to office who will open up the locked gates to do what? To usher in a new day for New Jersey. We, you and I, and everyone listening to this broadcast, we hold the key that will unlock that gate. And that key just happens to be the next U.S. Senator from the state of New Jersey, Tricia Flanagan. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a great, great crisis across this country. We have a great, great president, but we need a great, great U.S. Senator. Tricia Flanagan is that person. She will make sure that she unlocks the gate so that the flood of greatness and the flood of people supporting our Constitution, people not afraid of using God and country in the same sentence, and people not afraid to stand up and speak out will rally to the cause. I urge you to go out and vote for her, but even more so, let your friends, your neighbors, your relatives know we have a critical election coming up, an election that could mean the survival or the death of the United States of America. I choose the side of survival. I choose the side of Tricia Flanagan. Thank you, and may I now introduce the next U.S. Senator from the state of New Jersey, Tricia Flanagan.
I'm overwhelmed. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Lieutenant Stephen Rogers. From the bottom of my heart, I will never let you down. I will never stand down in the face of the tyranny that we are struck with in our state. I will fight with everything I've got. So help me God. And you said such important words. When I think about the importance of putting, as you said, God and country together, it is not only what our forefounders envisioned as they birthed this amazing country, but it is something that is critically important now in 2020 as we fight for the heart and soul of not just our country, but as you eloquently said, the heart and soul of our great state, New Jersey. We unfortunately have been assaulted by the liberal, what I call the liberal trifecta. It's Murphy, it's Menendez, and it's Murphy, Menendez, and Booker. And I have been crisscrossing this state with 4 critically important words for 2020. Cory Booker must go. But equally important is who we replace that senator with. We saw Cory Booker claim his Spartacus moment when he took down an incredible man's name, Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Fortunately, Justice Kavanaugh did indeed become our justice on the Supreme Court. But when I think of his wife sitting behind him, of his children, and of his family that had to sit through that, that is something we never thought we'd see on this U.S. Senate floor. What my vision is when we fight for the heart and soul of New Jersey and our country, what I envision is putting back the U.S. Senate as it was meant to be by our founding fathers. It is an esteemed office. And unfortunately, the people of New Jersey have not had real representation in either Cory Booker or Bob Menendez. 2020 is our year that we can fix that. And when we look at the liberal assault that has been imposed by Governor Murphy, there are federal provisions that we can rely on at that federal level, at that U.S. Senate level. But we have been neutered in our state by the likes of Cory Booker. First, it was his vanity presidential campaign, and then it was all along throughout his tenure in the U.S. Senate, turning his heart and his back on the great state of New Jersey. What we need is true leadership. What we need is our opportunity to bring back the might of the U.S. Senate and to push back on this liberal assault that we have seen. It is my honor to be in this race. It is my honor to be the voice of the people. I've been fighting for the people in many ways through this journey to this candidacy. And as Lieutenant Rogers said, the heart and soul of my own candidacy is the people of New Jersey. When I walk through the streets of Trenton, when I visit Inglewood, when I visit Camden, and when I hear from people that tell me, I can't believe you're talking to me. Politicians don't ever talk to us. It breaks my heart. And I tell them that that will change with me. If you will stand with me, if you will fight with Flanagan and find Flanagan on your GOP primary ballot, this is the vision that we can accomplish together. There's a revolution underfoot in our state. What we want to do is we want to deliver those 14 electoral college votes to our great president, President Trump, but we also want to march into New Jersey with liberty on our minds and in our hearts. We marched into New Jersey, great patriots marched into New Jersey once before, and we reclaimed this ground. And I say that it's time to do that again in 2020. July 7th is our first opportunity in that road, in that journey, to make sure that Cory Booker is replaced with a MAGA candidate. We've seen what President Trump can accomplish on his own. Let's imagine now what he can do with an empowered Congress behind him. It's what I like to call a MAGA majority. We certainly have to reclaim the United States House of Representatives, but we have to get that empowered majority in the U.S. Senate, that MAGA majority, to make sure that America's agenda is completely accomplished. When we do that, we will get our American ideal of full immigration reform. We're going to be talking tonight a lot about what that is going to look like. Full repeal of the visa chain lottery system, and making sure that now with 38 million American workers out of work, that we make sure that we protect American workers and put their needs and their jobs first and foremost. We're going to be able to fully repeal Obamacare. But what we replace that with matters. My health care plan is the proposed American Healthcare Restoration Act that cuts premiums in half for most patients, and it restores access to quality care and innovative treatment. Those are two different things, and those were sorely missing in Obamacare. It also gets government out of the American healthcare system where it never should have been to begin with. When we thread all of those policy plans together, when we look at the thriving economy where New Jersey can lead the way with the next technology corridor of our country, when we look at the Constitution Caucus initiative that I've outlaid that can restore our constitutional rights that have been so severely assaulted, when we put it all together and when we fight with Flanagan and find Flanagan on that ballot, that is the vision that we can turn into a reality. I promise you folks that I will always stand by our president because he has what America needs. And in this 2020 fight for, again, the heart and soul of not just New Jersey, but of our entire country, this is a win that will benefit all America. I thank you for staying close on this journey. I thank you for your support. Together, we can accomplish more than any of us could accomplish individually. And I promise you that if you stand with me in this fight, Cory Booker will go, and we will claim that United States Senate seat in New Jersey for a MAGA majority where we will all reclaim the vision of our forefathers and will make New Jersey and America all that we can be. So I thank you. Please stay close. And in the meantime, God bless you. God bless our great president. God bless New Jersey. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. Thank you, Tricia. Thank you very much. You want to introduce our next candidate?
Absolutely. So I think I'm going to toss this over to Marianne Mendoza. Marianne is an amazing American. She's the founder of Angel Moms, and she's going to talk a bit about her story right now. And something that I'm committed to making a reality is the immigration reform that we discussed just now. And Marianne is going to talk about that, the importance of making that a reality in our country. Marianne, I'll toss it to you.
Thank you so much, Tricia. I appreciate it. My name is Marianne Mendoza. I'm an angel mom. And on May 12th this year, just this last week, it was 6 years ago that my son was killed by an illegal alien in Mesa, Arizona. He was a police officer for 13 years, and he was a very intricate part of our community and obviously of my family. He was going home from work, and a 3 times illegal limit drunk, high on meth, repeat illegal alien criminal, had driven over 35 miles the wrong way on our freeways and slammed head on into my son, going over 100 miles an hour. That completely changed my life forever. My son was a champion of kids in our community here in Mesa. He mentored them at the Boys and Girls Club. He went to the park on his days off and played kickball with them and bought them pizza. And he actually bought Christmas presents out of his own money for these unfortunate children who lived in the neighborhood where he worked so hard. The chief put him in charge of a park in the whole community down there that had been overtaken by drug dealers and gangs and whatnot. And so Brandon systematically went to everybody's door, met them, introduced himself, told them what he was there to do. They embraced him. He cleaned up the park of all the drug dealers, got the homeless people situated in shelters, and helped that community reclaim that park. Trimmed the trees up so the police had a visual of the park as they drove by, got brand new playground equipment in there, got cameras in the park. And it was so wonderful to see these families back out in this park, picnicking and having fun with their families and not afraid of the drug dealers. Brandon was killed about a year before they finished the ball field that was in the middle of the park. And the community came together and renamed it Mendoza Ball Field in his honor, and put his badge number up on the cameras that are in the middle of the park so that those children know my son is continually watching over them to this day. And he had an annual Thanksgiving dinner at the Boys and Girls Club in that community to help the less fortunate. So when my son was killed, I took the time to write to then President Obama 2 different times to ask him for acknowledgement, because he had been becoming so just nonchalant about the police officers' lives that were being lost in this country, and being so pro-illegal and pro-refugee in this country without proper vetting of these people who are coming across our border. This was very troubling to me. I never heard a word from him. I did get a call from candidate Trump in July of 2015 to appear at a rally here in Phoenix with him. And he embraced me and my son's story and told me that my son will not have died in vain. And I believed the man then, and I know with my heart that I can still believe him today because he is a man of his word. One important topic that I'm going to talk about New Jersey is sanctuary policies. And not one American voter voted for sanctuary policies to be put in place in our country. These were enacted by elected liberal officials with an agenda. And expect more of it if we don't vote every one of them out this year. This is going to become rampant across our country. Mayors and city council direct the police departments if they're going to be sanctuary police departments or not. This goes down every level, to every level of elected officials in our country. Elected sheriffs can make their counties sanctuary once they're elected into office. Take North Carolina, for example. The former governor, Cory, made North Carolina an anti-sanctuary state, but 4 recently elected sheriffs have made their county sanctuary and refuse to cooperate with ICE, and no one is doing anything about it in this state. And we've got to make sure, even though New Hampshire isn't a sanctuary state, the Attorney General Gruhl says that law enforcement are not allowed to cooperate with the feds. which bottom line is a sanctuary state, folks. When you don't have your local police officers contacting ICE to come and get these illegal criminals out of your communities, these illegal criminals are shown more leniency than you or I would be shown for the same crime that these illegals commit. Sanctuary policies allow illegal criminals more protection from the law than American citizens are granted. Cory Booker wants to completely eliminate illegal detention. He wants everyone who arrives at the U.S. border to be released into our country and await their immigration hearing. 94% of those illegals already released into our country before they started being stopped at the border by Trump don't show up to their hearings. And now they become a burden on American taxpayers forever. And we are currently on a 3-year wait limit for those illegal asylum hearings to be happening in our court system. This is how backlog. The U.S. is already spending over $186 billion annually on illegals. And I want someone to please show me in our Constitution where it says elected officials can arbitrarily spend our taxpayer money for the support of illegals in our country without voter approval. And these are the types of things that these liberal politicians are doing. Every one of you listening to this podcast, guess what? You are a victim of illegal immigration in our country if you're an American taxpayer, because you're being forced to pay for them. We don't need any more Cory Bookers in the Senate. We need conservative, American-loving, patriotic senators, Trump supporters who can help get these initiatives and stop these frivolous lawsuits and have a Congress and a Senate that supports this president's agenda, because his agenda is pro-America, Americans first. That's why I'm supporting Tricia Flanagan in the Senate campaign against Cory Booker. The illegal problem is like an onion, and every layer of that onion is affected by illegal immigration. Education, healthcare, welfare, food stamps, housing, jobs, overburden on our law enforcement, overburden on our jobs and our jails and prisons, overburden on our border patrol. The list goes on and on and on. But the number one thing to remember is the safety of innocent Americans who are killed, raped, assaulted, involved in hit and runs. Their identity is taken from them. And let me tell you, when your identity is stolen and there's 12 or 13 or 15 illegals using your social security number, I know many, many victims. And one is a former military man who served in Iraq. He cannot get his life back, folks, because when he came back, his social security number had been sold to 12 different illegal aliens. He can't go to college. He can't get a job. He can't get an apartment. He can't get a loan for a vehicle. He even had an internship in DC that was turned down because of his social security. Your credit rating is everything in this world. These illegals are coming here for a better life, or so they say. Let me tell you something. There's housing envy that's going on in Guatemala, in Honduras, in El Salvador. Those families who have people already living here, they're sending money back in the billions to these countries. That is money, a lot of it tax-free, that is leaving our economy and going to these countries to provide a better life for their families. And this is why there's such a wave, because it's housing envy. They see the houses they're building. One woman was complaining in an article, the sob story articles that are just rampant right now, about her and her husband don't have the money to send home to the family. They've already provided her family with so much money. There's another man who was interviewed. He has sent home enough money to Honduras for his wife to build a home, educate their 4 children, and he's now buying his son taxis to start his taxi business up down there. Now, what person, what man leaves his family in an unsafe country? They are not unsafe country, folks. And this is the narrative that the liberals want you to believe, that Cory Booker pushes all the time, along with all those other liberal nutcases in Congress and Senate. We have got to wake up and realize we have been just taken advantage of unbelievably by these liberal politicians. We've got to stand firm. We have to stand behind people like Tricia Flanagan. We have to change the narrative in DC. And that's why I'm supporting you 100%, Tricia, because we need to see you in Senate representing New Jersey. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And my heart goes out to you, honestly, for your loss. It's horrible, Marianne. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for your presentation. We're going to move on to Virginia Krieger. She's also an angel mom. Virginia, it's your time.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Tricia. I'm so thrilled to be part of your presentation today. My name is Virginia Krieger, and I'm not a politician. I'm an actor or anyone famous. I've never been what anyone would call politically active other than voting until now. Simply put, I'm you. I'm just an average, everyday American citizen who has suffered the terrible consequences of poorly thought out border and immigration policies that were able to reach all the way from Washington, D.C. into my Ohio home and decimate my family forever. My only daughter, Tiffany Lee Robertson, was a dreamer. She had so many dreams and plans for her life, but not one of those dreams included dying on February 2nd, 2015, due to cartel drugs in the United States at only 26 years old. Tiffany was a loving mother of 2 young children, a semifinalist for American Idol twice. She was the recipient of hundreds of awards for her vocal talent and her musical compositions. Tiffany was a prominent student leader and graduated from high school a year early, completing her first year of college by the age of 18. She organized and led the student-based Yellow Ribbon campaign for activated troops after 9/11 in our hometown. And she volunteered for years, working with special needs children, and spent a lifetime helping others in need. In every sense of the word, Tiffany was the all-American girl next door, a vibrant, talented young woman with genuine love and compassion for just about everyone she met. In fact, it was her generosity and her concern for others that led to the terrible circumstances that claimed her life. While delivering baby clothes to a family in need, Tiffany fell through their dilapidated porch, landing to the ground 6 feet below. She suffered significant injuries from that fall and herniated 3 discs in her lumbar spine, which required medical treatment. Tiffany did everything right. She went to the emergency room and sought medical treatment. She went to her physician and was referred to a neurosurgeon. And while she was under the care of her physician, waiting for the appointment for that neurosurgeon, that's when headlines across the country broke the news of the opioid epidemic. The term opioid epidemic implies prescription drugs, but we didn't have a sudden rise in prescription-related deaths at that time. In fact, there was a well-defined and a sudden 500+% increase in the number of heroin and illicit fentanyl deaths. We didn't have a prescription-related opioid epidemic as the headlines implied. Now, were prescriptions being overprescribed at some point? Yes. But this problem was acknowledged by the medical community in 2008 and was already being brought under control when the news stories about opioids began to circulate in 2014, over 6 years later. As a result of this mislabeled epidemic, legislators' first wave of attacks was focused on physicians, and laws began to be passed in several states, which not only dictated patient care, but also dictated the circumstances under which prescription narcotics could be prescribed, and in some states, even legislated the dosages that were allowed. Overnight, reputable physicians found themselves being demonized and even criminalized, and they were put into fear of treating their acute and chronic pain patients. A vast number of family physicians stopped prescribing pain medications at all, and the majority of physicians directed their patients into pain clinics, which were in no way prepared for a massive influx of patients all at once. As a result, these valid patients with documented medical conditions like Tiffany had to wait weeks to months to be seen in these pain clinics to receive treatment that they so desperately needed. Sick, in pain, and withdrawing from prescribed narcotic medications, many valid patients like Tiffany turned to the only relief that they could find. And waiting for them on every street corners all over this country were the drug cartels, all too willing to sell their poisons to these suffering patients. Sadly, these illicit narcotics are still much easier to obtain than safe, controlled prescription medications. Two friends of my daughter convinced her that they could help. They obtained some street drugs and they gave them to my daughter. As my child lay slowly suffocating to death due to an overdose of heroin laced with fentanyl, these same two women who supplied her with these deadly poisons spent hours going back and forth to two separate ATMs, stealing the money from her bank account. They never called for help, despite knowing that she was in distress, and even returned to the ATM after the coroner had come and removed my child's lifeless body from the home. Tiffany wasn't the only one who died that day. My former life also ended that day, as did the former lives of Tiffany's two young children who were only 3 and 5 years old. Recent research findings by Northwestern and Pennsylvania universities published on PLOS1 uncovered that the number of reported drug-related mortalities in the US by the CDC are egregiously underreported, and the actual number of drug-related deaths are more than double the CDC estimates. Instead of the reported 63,000 deaths in 2016 alone, over 142,000 American lives were lost due to the rising drug presence in the United States. So not only do we not have accurate mortality numbers of the drug-related deaths necessary to adequately assess and respond to the rising drug cartel presence in the US, the media has very successfully turned the American eyes away from the main source of all these deaths, which are the porous borders, flawed immigration policies, sanctuary cities, failed ICE compliance, the drug cartels, and their poisons, heroin, methamphetamines, and illicit fentanyl. Even more shocking is the fact that based on these new mortality numbers, it puts the actual number of drug-related deaths at over 792,885 dead. That is over 389 American lives lost every single day, 16 lives every single hour since 2013. Of those, an overwhelming number, 89%, are the direct result of cartel narcotics in the US. The number one cause of accidental death in the US is now accidental overdose, with over 100,000 victims every single year, which more than triples the 39,000 deaths caused by car accidents in 2019. According to the Department of Health and Human Services, over 8.7 million children right now live in homes where substance abuse is present. That's 1 out of every 5 children in the US. These children suffer from neglect and abuse, causing long-term, potentially permanent psychological and emotional damage due to their poor treatment by their sick caregivers. Caregivers who are sick because they're systematically being poisoned by these illicit substances being enabled by failed US policies. Last year alone in Ohio, over 14,000 children entered the custody of Child and Family Services. The incidence of reported abuse in foster care is as high as 80%, either by their foster parents or other children in the home. So these children are the least acknowledged and most innocent victims, collateral damage caused by porous borders, cartels, and drugs. Currently, the Sinaloa cartel is present in every city, state, and county in the United States. These cartel members, most of whom are illegal aliens, murder, rape, and commit vast numbers of crimes with impunity, and have literally destroyed entire communities, families, and lives in greater numbers than anyone has ever seen before in all of our history. The newest DEA heroin signature report asserts that 91.6% of all of the illicit heroin in the United States is Mexican in origin. The illicit fentanyl being distributed by the cartels is by far the most dangerous illicit substance ever to enter the US black market. It is the first illicit narcotic that has leapt out of the substance abuse community and is affecting people with little to no history of substance abuse at all. Illicit fentanyl has been found laced in drugs from marijuana to methamphetamines. It can be absorbed through the skin, inhaled, or ingested. It comes in liquid, powder, and counterfeit pill forms, and it only takes 2 milligrams. That's 2 grains smaller than a piece of rice to kill an average-sized adult. So now our children are at the extreme risk of death if they make one bad choice and choose to use a recreational drug of any kind. And the death tolls due to this illicit fentanyl continue to rise without any signs of slowing. In 2019, the DHS reported that there is a strong potential for this illicit fentanyl to be used as a non-conventional chemical weapon. So the next time you hear a news story about someone who was randomly driving around with a pound of illicit fentanyl, be aware that this means that one individual, one person was walking around with the chemical capability of killing over 223,000 people right at their fingertips. If illicit fentanyl is ever used as a chemical weapon, I fear that it would be a more deadly attack than all the mass shootings in the US in history combined. Democrats like to talk about gun control, but they don't want to share the fact that the majority of the gun-related crimes in this country are being committed by cartel-affiliated gangs, fighting for territory, defending their current territory, or using guns for intimidation tools against their enemies. This is also a direct result of the porous borders and the Democrats' continued protection of cartel criminals. Instead of recognizing these unthinkable losses to American families due to these cartel drugs and criminals in the US, Democrats have consistently fought against the very border security which would allow us to properly search, x-ray all vehicles entering the US to detect hidden compartments containing these drugs killing our children. Democrats continue to fight against policies that would allow us to properly vet and stop known cartel members and criminals from entering the country who do harm to our families and communities. Democrats continue to fight against ICE to prevent them from capturing these cartel members and criminals, to stop them from spreading this poison to our children or harming our families. Then they try to say that we are monsters because we want to make sure that not one more parent has to stand by their child's grave looking down at their child's lifeless body, where goodbye means they will never see them again on this earth as I have. I was a 33-year card-carrying Democrat on the day I wrote a heartfelt, tear-stained letter to the former President Obama, sharing Tiffany's story and begging him to acknowledge the terrible losses resulting from the porous borders and the reinstatement of catch and release that allowed these cartel criminals to flood our nation. But I never got even a form letter in response. I have begged Democrat politicians to sit down with me so I can share the information I have found in the hopes that they would recognize the harm that they are causing to American families with these flawed policies. But not one Democrat politician to date has agreed to sit down and have that discussion. I walked away from the Democrats after my terrible loss was ignored. And after I voted for Donald Trump and celebrated his election, I sent a copy of that same letter to our new president in February of 2016. Not only did I get a response, but I received a very personalized letter that empathized with my loss and showed great kindness and compassion for me and my family. In that letter, I was given a promise by Donald Trump that he would fight to secure the border and against the illicit narcotics destroying the American families. For the first time since losing Tiffany, I was actually heard by a legislator, and I felt comforted. And I've watched for 3 long years as this president tirelessly fights for every single inch of ground to build that wall, despite frivolous lawsuits and resistance efforts, to secure this nation and keep his promise. There was no justice to be had for Tiffany's death. The 2 women responsible for her were never prosecuted. The drug dealer who was selling the poison that claimed her life is still operating. The cartels continue to infest my state, now protected by sanctuary policies, emboldened because they now have more rights and civil protections than my family. They're above the law. In closing, the next time you hear politicians or the media talking about children in cages, I want you to remember this. My grandson, an American, was 5 years old when his mommy died. To this day, he cannot close the door to any room all the way due to the paralyzing fear that we may not be there when he comes out. The post-traumatic stress and separation anxiety cage that was built for him by failed government policy will last forever. My granddaughter, who was only 3 years old, still cries because she has so few memories of her mommy, longing for that connection that she can never have. Her mental and emotional trauma will also last forever. My child, my only daughter, a U.S. citizen, is permanently and forever caged in a casket, 84 inches long, 28 inches wide, and 23 inches tall, inside a concrete box buried 6 feet under the ground. And she will never be released from it because our own Democratic leadership made the poor choice to put the welfare of non-citizens above the safety and well-being of Americans. This same tragedy is being repeated over 389 times every day as more and more angel families are created. This president can't do it alone. We need strong conservative legislators who will support the America First agenda, who are willing to fight alongside President Trump to protect American families and interests. And that's why I strongly support Tricia Flanagan, because she is exactly the kind of fighter that we need to protect and secure American families so that my family's tragedy doesn't become your tragedy. Thank you.
Virginia, I want to just have just a second here of silence because we want to honor your daughter. Thank you. I know that's difficult. I know it's difficult. My heart goes out to you. I have 12 grandchildren. I don't know what to say. I don't want to just cavalierly move to the next person. I just want to make sure that Virginia, you know that we really, really, really stand for you. And we know that Tricia Flanagan will do whatever it takes to make sure that these rights are no longer going, these lives are never going to be taken away. Thank you.
I know you will, Tricia. I know you will.
Can I just jump in and say,
Please. Please.
I wish I could give you a hug, Virginia. I'm a mom of 3, and your story is unbearable to me. And I swear to you that I will do everything I humanly can to fight with you and to make sure that not another mother suffers this, not another father, not another family. It is the most critical thing we can do, is to protect our own citizens. And you have my vow that I will stand to do that. So help me God. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tricia. I know you will. That's why I'm with you 100%.
Thank you, Virginia, for sharing that story. And I know it's very difficult. Okay. And I know that this, it can't be said enough. Thank you. All right, let's take a deep breath. Okay. I'd like to move to our next guest. Our next guest is the NRA board member. His name is Anthony Colandro. Anthony, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can, Anthony. Anthony, welcome to mrnplus.com/live. I want to thank you for joining the MAGA American Rally. I'm a little verklempt at this point in time, as you probably are yourself.
Yes, I am.
That is a moving story. You're going to speak to us about Second Amendment and constitutional rights. I give you the floor.
You know, Marion and Virginia, my condolences to both of you. As a gun person, what Virginia said was, whenever there's a crime, they always attack us law-abiding citizens, and the criminals always get a free pass. It's always gun crime. And that's not car crime when somebody has an accident intentionally. So it's always gun crime. We're used to those attacks. And I'm I'm used to being attacked because for 28 years I've been involved in Second Amendment issues in the state of New Jersey. For the past 12 years, I've been a state NRA board member, and for the past 2 years, I've been a national NRA board member. So I get attacked all the time. I'm every ism that exists, and the media is always looking to attack me because it's not easy to survive in New Jersey. New Jersey doesn't recognize the Second Amendment in its state constitution, and they flip their nose to the federal government and federal laws all the time. In New Jersey, we own firearms at our own peril. In New Jersey, everything is an exemption when you own a gun, and that's why we need someone like Tricia Flanagan who's going to stand for us, because we're sadly outnumbered in the state of New Jersey. Our only recourse we ever find is taking cases to the U.S. Supreme Court, which takes years and years to get there. Our legislators don't care. We have a supermajority pretty much of Democrats in the state level in both houses. Chris Christie held the line for us the 8 years he was in office. And now we have a governor who doesn't think the Second Amendment should exist, as he walks the streets surrounded by men with guns protecting him and his family 24/7. And we have 3 New Jersey cases sitting before the U.S. Supreme Court right now, and they just deferred the cases, the conferences, for the third week in a row now. We're waiting for the Supreme Court to decide. They have 10 Second Amendment cases, and 3 of them from New Jersey, which could change the landscape for us. Of course, New Jersey will go down kicking and screaming, fighting for that. But it is so hard to acquire a gun in New Jersey. It is virtually impossible to get a carry permit to defend yourself and your family in New Jersey. We have 9 million people in the state of New Jersey, and less than 1,000 people have a concealed carry permit in the state of New Jersey. I'm talking about civilians, law-abiding citizens. Of course, retired cops and security officers, armored car drivers, they can get them, but they have to jump through hoops as well to get them. But we're one of 6 states that do not recognize our right to self-defense outside of our home. New Jersey's laws are backwards. In New Jersey, if you take your guns from your house to your gun range, to shoot, you can't have any unnecessary deviations. If you were to stop for gas and your car was stolen while you were inside getting a cup of coffee, you would be charged with a felony for an unnecessary deviation with no criminal intent. Last year, the governor signed into law 10-round magazine limit. And what they do in New Jersey is we went from 15-round magazine to 10-round magazine, and it's a class 3 felony for mere possession with no criminal intent. So if you had a 15-round magazine that you forgot to modify or destroy, and the police found it in your house, you're looking at 3 years in jail and a $10,000 fine, and you'll never own guns again. Yet a violent criminal in the state of New Jersey, if they rob a convenience store with a gun, the first thing they plead down is the gun charge, and they get time served a couple of months for theft or whatever it is, grand larceny, and they're back out on the street. And New Jersey, the scheme is to do this to prevent law-abiding citizens from having the gumption to get a gun. It makes people afraid. They're afraid to go to the police department. The inner cities discriminate against all of our people of all different colors and backgrounds. They add unnecessary paperwork. They let them wait months and even years before they can get a permit to purchase a gun. I deal with this every day. Questions, emails, messages from people. I applied in Patterson. It's been 2 years. They haven't gotten back to me yet. The law says 30 days. A right delayed is a right denied, is what I say all the time. And New Jersey is notorious for doing this, scaring us off. And I fight. I was at the rally yesterday with Tricia. Thank you for being there as well. As a business owner and a gun range owner, I've been closed 11 weeks now. My gun range, the air is 7 times cleaner than outside air. People come with their own guns and accessories and shoot in separate stalls with moving air behind them. But the Crown of New Jersey has not granted me permission to open yet. But I can go to a Walmart, a Home Depot, or a liquor store. We sued him to allow outdoor ranges to be open. And when it got to the courts, the next day he reversed it and he allowed outdoor ranges in New Jersey to be open again. Again, arbitrary. What can be open? What can be closed? I can go to Walmart and buy a shirt, but I can't go to my friend's clothing store to buy a shirt. We're used to this in the gun community in New Jersey. We're used to being the bottom of the barrel. I'm used to dealing with the fear mongering from politicians and police chiefs and everyone else involved in the chain. It's just a horrible situation to be in. We fight to hold the line every day. If it was up to our governor, he would completely ban guns in the state of New Jersey, as well as Menendez and as well as Cory Booker. And it's long overdue that we need a change. Our whole political system has flipped. This is something I've been saying for years now. We have a 3-tiered system in this country. The first tier is the political class and the elites, the 40-year, 50-year incumbents. The second class we have are the criminals and illegals that the first tier pander to for votes. They own them. And then the third tier on the bottom is we, the people, the law-abiding, tax-paying citizens, that they are deaf to us. They don't listen to us, like not building the wall, like Virginia said. When we demand something from our politicians on both sides of the aisle, they turn a deaf ear to us. I've been saying for years, our elected officials in Washington, D.C., they should wear NASCAR-style jackets with all their sponsors' patches on them, and they shouldn't be allowed to have an American flag if they don't represent we the people. Every day we fight in New Jersey. Every day I see people arbitrarily get locked up and charged for bogus things that go on just to scare the people in the gun community. First-generation immigrants, hardworking, salt-of-the-earth people in Patterson, Passaic, and Clifton. They come to my range and shoot. Oh, I went to the police department. I applied for a permit. They told me I couldn't have one. What was the reason? Oh, because you're an immigrant. Are you a citizen? Yes. Do you have a green card? Yes. You can get one. Well, the police officer told me I couldn't, and I have to intervene, and the state NRA has to intervene all the time, constantly deterring people from exercising their Second Amendment right. The whole scam and scheme is set up from the top to the bottom. It is horrible, and we can't get any relief. Our governor and both houses could care less about us. We need help, Tricia. We need you to get elected.
I'm telling you, honestly, thank you so much. I want to add something to what you said. George Orwell wrote in his book Animal House that everyone is equal, but some are more equal than others. Okay, which defines socialism. Okay.
So, Frank, yesterday at my speech, I said George Orwell's 1984 and Animal Farm are now available in nonfiction.
Agreed. And you know what? Listen, I don't own a gun. Okay. And maybe I shouldn't say that out loud. I don't own a gun. But the bottom line is that because I don't own a gun, I should never tell you that you can't. It's a right. It's an inalienable right. It was given to us by our forefathers. We 100% stand for what you say. Tricia, why don't you add in here? I think you have something to say.
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, I cannot agree with you more, Anthony. I mean, we have reached a tipping point in our country. And, we know through the Supreme Court rulings, for example, Brown v. Board of Education, we see that the states' rights can only transcend as far as the U.S. Constitution will allow them to be imposed. The problem is that we have not had legislators who were bold enough or brave enough or knew the law well enough to be able to stand up on those convictions and fight for we the people. Well, that day has to end. And look, I'm not one for a fool's errand. I started my life as a biochemist. I like solutions. I like to turn things over and see how the mechanics of things work. Well, we know how this law works. We know how our Constitution works, or at least how it's supposed to. And what we have to do is stop sitting on the sidelines. We, the people, have to be empowered. We, the people, have to get angry. When I hear stories from Virginia and Marianne and Anthony, when I hear these horrific stories that we as Americans are undergoing and what we are victims of, I get angry. Well, where can we channel that anger? Because I know everyone feels it that way too, as if you're a red-blooded normal American. What we can do is we can take this moment and we can deliver a candidate like myself. I'm ready to roar, and we are thirsty for that power, for that leadership, for that pushback. And when you send me to that seat, this is the collective universe that I will be fighting for. I will never let you down. I will fight with everything I've got. Finally, God found a reason to put this big mouth in my body, and it's to fight, fight, fight for we the people.
Tricia, Tricia, Anthony, here's the thing. We do know that there is one Supreme Court justice that is pretty close to, I don't wish ill on anybody, but she's got pancreatic cancer. Supreme Court seats can open up within the next 5 years. Okay, and if you're in the Senate, we can pretty much count that vote is going to put in somebody who's going to protect the Second Amendment. And if people don't realize, if Cory Booker is elected, then you're going to be putting somebody who will not defend the Second Amendment. Anthony, I think you have something to say on that.
I would like to add, that's a great point, Frank. The other point is, Trump's first 3 years now, him and Mitch McConnell have pushed through 220 lower court judges, which are just as important because we'd like to get the cases nipped in the bud before they have to trudge up to the Supreme Court. And again, having someone like Tricia there for the next term of Trump's reelection, we could get 450 judges, which could change the makeup for the courts for the next 2 generations.
Absolutely.
That's right. And if I could quickly add that, we've seen the damage that one senator can do. We saw Obamacare go through the process to not only be upheld, but the full repeal was struck down by one senator's vote. That was Senator John McCain. Now, God rest his soul. I don't speak ill of the dead, but that's the reality. One senator made all the difference. We saw one senator, that Spartacus moment that Cory Booker tried to claim, that one senator made all the difference in what Justice Kavanaugh was put through on his way to the Supreme Court. One senator matters, and when you get the right voice in the right seat, it can make all the difference.
It's 9 o'clock. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Okay, you're a hard act to follow. I'll just let you know, Anthony. Okay, I want to move to our next guest. I want to move on to Robert Patterson. Robert is a former Trump administration member. He is running for New Jersey Congressional District 2. He's a congressional candidate. I'd like to introduce everyone at New Right Network, NRNplus.com. To Robert Patterson. Good evening, Robert.
Frank, good evening. This is Bob Patterson. I appreciate you having me on your program this evening. Frank gave a terrific, I felt I got an education here just listening to Frank talk about the challenges of protecting the Second Amendment in the Garden State. So this has been a wonderful program tonight. I'm really here because Tricia Flanagan and I have partnered up in New Jersey. We are on the same line. We are on the America First Republicans line, running on a platform. She's the Senate candidate. I'm the candidate in New Jersey's 2nd district. And the 2nd district, if you don't know, is down in South Jersey. We represent about 8 counties down here. And we represent 30% of the entire state. It's the largest geographic congressional district in New Jersey. I am the conservative candidate, the clear conservative candidate running for Congress in the 2nd district. And I'm running against, in the primary, the incumbent Jeff Van Drew. And if you know anything about Jeff Van Drew, and I'm sure that Tony knows about it, Jeff Van Drew voted for gun control shortly after moving to Washington. He was elected as a Democrat. He got in on the Democratic wave 2 years ago. So he gets elected to Congress with the backing of the NRA. And within several months of being in Washington, the Dems put a gun control bill on the table. And what does Jeff Van Drew do? He caves and he votes for gun control. So I don't know what the NRA is going to do with him now with that vote against gun control last year. But I'm the conservative candidate in this race. Jeff Van Drew is the liberal candidate. I'm with Trish. I am a pro-Trump, American First Republican. I have been writing on America First issues for probably 10 years. I've laid out issues on manufacturing, bringing our factories back, reducing our trade deficit, maintaining a defense, maintaining a manufacturing capability to support our defense, our U.S. military. So I've been an America Firster for a long time. And I'm in this race. I'm like Trish. I'm pro Second Amendment. I'm pro life. That's another contrast I have with Mr. Van Drew. Mr. Van Drew has 100% rating from Planned Parenthood. And that's his 2020 congressional scorecard. Mr. Van Drew calls himself, he claims to be strongly and unequivocally pro-choice. And when he served in Trenton, he brags that he voted on 16 separate occasions to give taxpayer money to America's abortion machine, Planned Parenthood. I, on the other hand, have the endorsement of the New Jersey Right to Life PAC. I'm 100% pro-life, and I will fight with Trish to defend life in the human life in the womb. I will work to defund Planned Parenthood and support efforts to revoke Roe v. Wade or give those decisions back to the states. So I'm very proud to be on this line with Trish, support her candidacy for the Senate. And I think both of us share this Trump perspective, pro-Second Amendment, pro-life, pro-America, and pro-Trump.
Can I just say I'm so honored, Bob, to be on that CD2 line with you. I am so thrilled that we see the light at the end of the tunnel for those precious babies. And I will add that, there are two critical bills, pro-life bills, that stand to come to the U.S. Senate floor, the Born Alive bill and the Heartbeat bill. And this is something that, this is our first chance since 1973 to take a big bite out of Roe v. Wade. In my opinion, it should still be rolled back further, but those are our two critical opportunities in coming legislative sessions. And between you in Congress and me in the Senate, I believe that there is nothing that we can't achieve when it comes to saving those precious tiny lives. So I'm honored by your endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. And for their viewers out there who aren't aware of what's going on in the 2nd District, this is a classic primary battle between a conservative challenger who doesn't have the money or support or the institutional support that Jeff Van Drew has. Jeff Van Drew is the liberal establishment Republican. He's only been a Republican for 4 months, maybe 5 months. And he really only changed parties when he realized that he would not be reelected if he stayed a Democrat. But his voting remains liberal. He's still voting against Trump, even since his conversion. And he got this 100% Planned Parenthood rating for his 2020 record. So this man is not, his voting record is not Republican by any stretch of the imagination. And I offer a very clear alternative for conservatives in the 2nd District to oust Mr. Van Drew and put a true conservative and a true Republican fighting for South Jersey and fighting for Donald Trump in Washington. And if anybody wants to go to my website, it's bobpattersonforcongress.com, bobpattersonforcongress.com. Those willing to contribute can contribute there at that website. We need to raise money to keep our ads on television and get our message out. And we think we come primary day, July 7th, we're going to come up with enough votes to beat Mr. Van Drew.
How many counties, Bob, did you say you're coming across?
There's eight full counties. There's Cape May County, Atlantic County, Cumberland County, and Salem County in their entirety. And then we have parts of Gloucester, Camden, Burlington, and Ocean. 92 municipalities.
Wow.
It's the largest, in terms of landmass, the largest congressional district in New Jersey, represents about 30% of the state in terms of landmass.
Wow. Well, Bob, the Second Amendment to everybody here at New Right Network and NRNplus.com. Okay. The Second Amendment and the right to life are two of the most important issues that all of us have. Okay. I throw this back to Tricia and say, Tricia, you remember back in November when Cory Booker was celebrating women, okay? Like he knows what women believe and what women think, and you know, I laugh sometimes at his hubris. You know, Bob and Tricia, you know, talk about that, the hubris that he has, and he just sits there and just he takes the right to life or the life of a child so frivolously. Isn't our job as human beings to protect the most innocent among us?
Absolutely, absolutely.
For certain. And Frank, if you recall, I wrote an op-ed about just that. I believe it was published in Insider NJ, and it was my calling out Cory Booker because he made a statement that he said, real men protect women's rights. And my retort and response to him was, no, real men protect the lives of innocent children. And you know, he uniquely, I think, you know, as a woman, as a mother, I think that I can, talk to him in that very, very unique and specific way and call him out for the atrocities that he suggests. And it's not just an ideologic issue. I'd like to speak for a moment on the practicality of being pro-life in New Jersey, because, you know, everybody thinks New Jersey is so irretrievably blue. We're not. And my closing remarks, I'll walk through some of the numbers that really hit that home. But the other issue is that not only do we have a strong presence of, as you mentioned, Bob, the New Jersey right to life, evangelicals have a strong presence in New Jersey. A number of religions reside in New Jersey, but few people know that we have the second largest Catholic population in the country, second only to Rhode Island. And that's right from Pew Research. And when you look at the voter dynamics, 34% of registered Democrats are pro-life Catholics. And so we already have a very strong majority of pro-life advocates. But when you fold in those Democrats who are ready to come over to the Republican side to stand for life, we really have a path to victory on that issue alone. And that's great news for all those who want to stand for life instead.
Absolutely. Bob, I'm going to ask you a question. In the last Senate election, this is something that I wrote, and I actually said that in the last Senate election, the New Jersey GOP put up Hugo. Okay? My response to that Menendez was such a flawed candidate that if the New Jersey GOP put up a dead body with a sign that says, I'm pro-life and pro-Trump, he probably could have gotten more votes than Menendez.
He would have. Absolutely. No, I mean, especially down in South Jersey. South Jersey is more culturally conservative than North Jersey. A lot of pro-life, you know, as Tricia said, a lot of pro-life in the Democrat and the Republican Party. A lot of people who support, you know, the Second Amendment. We have a lot of gun clubs down here. We have sportsmen's clubs, shooting ranges. They're all over South Jersey. And so this is a very ripe district for our conservative message, for our pro-life, pro-Second Amendment message, and for our pro-border security message. South Jersey has really taken a beating over the last 30 years of our open border philosophy. And basically what the elites of Washington and New York have done, we've seen a wholesale substitution of high-wage American labor with cheap foreign labor. And whether that's cheap foreign labor coming across the border or it's cheap foreign labor where we have corporate outsourcing, we've replaced high-wage American jobs with cheap foreign labor. And South Jersey has taken a beating. South Jersey lags behind North Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania in economic indicators. We're losing populations. We're losing jobs. Mr. Van Drew, although he's in his first year as a congressman, he's held elected office in South Jersey for almost 30 years. And I've never heard him ever set forth any kind of a recipe to reverse the state of affairs in South Jersey. And I've got a plan to bring manufacturing jobs back here. I got a plan here to push game-changing infrastructure projects. All these things are part of my agenda, as well as pro-life and pro-Second Amendment. We can win this race, and we can make South Jersey great again.
I'd like to have you back at a later point in time on my show to do a town hall, because I think we should do a live town hall with you. I think that you're the kind of guy that New Right Network, loves to have and showcase, because you believe in the MAGA and the American majority, and we'd like to have you back at a later time. But by the way, great segue, Bob, to the next person coming up, because Michael Emmons is going to talk just about that, and I'm going to add my piece on top of that. I'm an IT executive. I've been working for 40 years in IT, and the H-1B visa has ruined my career over the last 5 years, okay? Because people are working for half my rate, okay, coming in and taking jobs away from Americans, okay, because we have a skewed system. I'm going to leave it up to Bob to talk about that. Bob is from the American Workers Union. Michael Emmons is from the American Workers Union. Michael, I'd like to thank you very much. You're with the U.S. STEM Worker Advocacy Group, so obviously you speak for me. Welcome, Michael.
Hi, thank you for having me. And I'm from American Workers Coalition, AM Work CO on Twitter. We really are initially three mothers and myself started it, and we started communicating to Congress, letting them know what was happening to American jobs in the STEM industry. The three mothers all are tech people, and they're worried about their children. Before I get into that, I wanted to say to Virginia and Marianne that I feel for you. I know it's very difficult, and I appreciate you standing up for what you believe in. My daughter is 24. She has 3 friends that have died from fentanyl, and it's just sickening what happened to them. Some of them were, they just got marijuana or whatever it was, and there was fentanyl in it. For Marianne, you speak of illegal aliens. Well, we're speaking about legal immigration. Our entire department was ordered by corporate management to train our foreign replacement workers. Our replacements were Tata India employees, holders of H-1B and L-1B visas. Our once extremely diverse IT department of male, female, Black, white, Hispanic, and Asian Americans were replaced with an all young male staff from Tata India. Actually, I had 3 trainees, each learned a different facet of my job. None of them had near the knowledge or experience as me, but they were cheaper. I actually saw one of my trainees reading an intro to manual. But of course, these are supposed to be specialized knowledge workers. I reached out to my Congress people, my 2 Democrat senators. I'm actually in Florida. This happened to me about 18 years ago. I've been fighting for this for a long time. It's only gotten worse, but neither of my senators would respond to me. My U.S. representative didn't do much either. Nobody has really stood up for American workers. And I found Tricia on Twitter, and that's how I've come in contact with her. She is America First, and Trump started out, he said, buy American, hire American. Well, the hire American part has not really taken effect yet. And I believe part of that is because there's not enough Tricias in the Senate and the Congress. We're looking forward to you coming in and giving us a hand. To continue on, it really was difficult for me, but I was a lucky American that found a job. Many of my coworkers were not. One guy started a landscaping business with a master's in computer science. I myself, I'm a father of a handicapped daughter, spina bifida. I know, Tricia, you're a doctor, so you know what spina bifida is, a spinal defect at birth. She had 20-something surgeries. And at the same time, I'm training my foreign replacements in my own hometown. I'm taking care of my daughter, who's had over $200,000 worth of medical bills. Come to find out, our trainees were not on H-1B visas. They were on L-1B. L-1B is another one of the alphabet soup of visas used to put Americans out of work and get cheap labor for the corporations lining the pockets of Congress. Under the L-1B, there's no salary constraints and there's no quantity limits. We learned through another H-1B I'd worked with for a long time, they actually were making $3,000 a month, but $2,000 of it was paid as non-taxable expenses. So their taxable salary was $1,000 a month, which my medical premiums were $947, $53 more. How is any American supposed to work with those kind of competition? And then you contact your Congress member and your senators and they don't care. It was the most demoralizing time of my career. And like I said, this happened to me in 2003. I was a lucky American. I left mid-training. I was not an employee. I was a contractor, but I don't think it matters. No American should have to train foreign replacement workers in their own hometown. So as a contractor, they didn't give me a severance. I never signed anything, but most of the employees had a severance. And they signed it to get a small severance, and they trained their replacements, and they went on. And the foreign workers lived in our hometown. They brought their families, their kids went to our schools. And I really don't want to say bad things about them. It's the politicians that created this for the corporations. So with that, I've learned over the years that it's not just STEM tech workers. Toys R Us in New Jersey replaced their accountants. McDonald's in Columbus, Ohio replaced their accountants, 70 of them. They said it was a cost-cutting measure. We need more people like Tricia Flanagan in the Senate. This should not happen to well-educated Americans. We're telling our kids to go to college, go in debt, and then they get out and they can't find work. It's just destruction of our young people. Not only that, you throw in the next latest phase that Congress has done. Well, actually, Congress did not grant this. President Bush started it and Obama extended it. It's called OPT. OPT is optional practical training. So when a foreign student is in school, he can get an OPT to work, and he can get it and extend it for years, especially in the technology arena. They don't have to pay Social Security or Medicare, neither the corporation nor the OPT worker. That is a 15.3% discount to hire a foreign worker instead of our kids. It's time to take care of our kids.
Mike,
yeah.
Mike, let me ask you a question. Do you know about this trick? Okay, here's a good trick that they use. So they bring the H-1B visa guy over here, okay, and he gets paid half the rate. But what happens is the company he works for tells him that he has to work 80 hours a week, and not 40, 80 hours a week, and get paid for 40. So basically, the guy that they're getting for half price is actually getting paid 1/4 of the price that you get paid.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because they're not getting double the work, because the people that I were training, they had no knowledge of the work I'm doing. And I left mid-training, and I have been at my job for the past 18 years. So don't tell me that we're not qualified for these positions. And you'll hear that a lot from the immigration attorneys and the people that are pushing these visa programs. There's plenty of Americans do these work. They just don't want to pay an American wage.
Michael, this is how it works, because I have a friend that worked at Tata. So this is how it works. The American company will put the job out, and let's just say the job pays $100 an hour, just for argument's sake. The American job pays $100 an hour, okay? They'll put the job out and they get a whole bunch of resumes that come in, all right? And in America working resumes. And then they'll offer the job, and they'll offer the job at $50 an hour. Well, Michael, you're making $100 an hour. Your whole life is built on your hourly rate, okay? You've worked your entire life. I've got 40 years in IT. I've worked my entire life. I have experience. And what is your response? I can't work for that, or I'm not going to leave my current job for that, okay? I'm not going to make less to do the same job. And so what they'll do is then they'll petition the United States government and say, we cannot fill this job with an American worker. It's a lie. If they fill the job with the American worker at the rate that it's supposed to be paid, yes, they can fill it.
Yeah, the visa programs are wrought with fraud beyond. I mean, I've heard stories where the person that gets interviewed in India is not the person that takes the job.
That's correct, because I interviewed them. I'm a program manager. The person I interviewed on the phone spoke fluent English. The person that walked in the first day could barely speak English.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
and then other people are taking their tests for them. That's another thing. So they'll get certifications, and they'll say that they're certified, but they're not certified. And, they're not certified in Cisco or whatever. They'll say they're certified. Somebody took the test for them.
Yeah. So I am a software developer. I build applications to make people more productive and businesses more productive. What I did could not be moved abroad. I hear people talk about outsourcing all the time. I don't call what happened to me as outsourcing or our team. It's insourcing. The only way to have taken my job and given it to someone else is to import the worker in here and make me train him. I had to train them on the way I developed software applications.
And Michael, this is Bob Patterson. This has been going on for 30 years. And you go back to the early 90s. And our fearless leaders in Washington, in bed with Wall Street, systematically pursued a course that resulted in the substitution of high-wage American jobs with cheap foreign labor, and whether that's outsourced in terms of manufacturing or, as you say, insourced of cheap foreign labor. And the end result has been the American way of life stands at tremendous risk today because these large companies that take care of the shareholders aren't taking care of the American workers.
And at the same time, Bob, they lowered the standard, and they've actually lowered the standards in education. So we're teaching our kids to work at McDonald's instead of working at McDonnell Douglas.
Yeah.
Well, here's the additional tragedy is that in New Jersey, we graduate the highest number of engineers of any state. But what happens is then we can't retain them. And this is where the legislative solution gets really murky, because as you just outlined, Mike, these are loopholes that they're creating, that companies are leveraging. It's not the law that is the problem. It's these loopholes that have gone around it. And there is another critical piece of legislation that is the S-386 that I know that you're very familiar with,
yes.
Mike, and that I'm the only U.S. Senate candidate in New Jersey who has come out and staunchly opposed S-386. It is not a conservative bill. It is a bill that will hurt American workers, and it is a bill that will only help us offshore more information. And I'd like to just bring up quickly the issue of, as we offshore more and more data, that's something that I've worked with for decades, both on the medical side and on the proprietary data analytics side. And I can tell you that especially when we look at bills that are pending, like HR 6666, the tracing and collecting data, when we put that into a database, if we don't close these legislative loopholes now, our data will be compromised, we're offshoring it, and that is opening a Pandora's box of problems that America shouldn't have to deal with.
Tricia, the most important asset for an organization is not necessarily its people, but its data. Okay? Some of these companies have been in business for tens of years. The amount of data that they maintain internally is worth a significant amount of money for data mining and so on and so forth. Okay? I did a lot of work at the Centers for Medicaid Management Services and a number of states. The information that these companies and government agencies hold is significant. Okay, I worked for a company called Smith & Nephew down in Memphis, Tennessee. They develop medical devices, artificial joints and different things like that. The amount of information that they house and maintain is worth a significant amount of money. And what these companies don't realize is they're putting their data at risk significantly by hiring outside and outsourced people to work in those organizations.
Absolutely.
The burden is going to get more heavy when we look to the US Senate and to Congress, because as we saw when Mark Zuckerberg testified in front of Congress, they're woefully prepared. And what we have to do is think ahead now, and we have to make sure that we have those smart legislators who understand this legislation to make that difference.
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I had two more things I wanted to say is while I was here, I did research. I use Numbers USA as an immigration site that grades voting records of politicians. And Jeff Van Drew has an F- rating on importing foreign replacement workers, or unnecessary workers on visas, as they call them. And Cory Booker has an F rating. So neither one of them care about American workers. And one last thing is, you mentioned, Bob, that this has been going on for 30 years. You're absolutely right. The abuse of the H-1B visa is as old as the program itself. In 1995, 48 Hours and Dan Rather reported slamming the door. AIG Insurance in Livingston, New Jersey, I'm sure y'all know where that is, replaced 250 plus well-educated Americans with H-1Bs.
Mike, I'm going to end this section with the following. Okay, the major proponent of H-1B visas came from one man who is at the center of everything right now today, and that's Bill Gates. Bill Gates said we cannot educate our children fast enough to fulfill what we need, and he opened the floodgates for the H-1B visas back in 1995. Okay, I know this because I have been researching this subject for many, many years, and I'll be having a series of articles coming out of newrightnetwork.com and having interviews with very many people to discuss this particular issue, because these people in Congress, Bob, Tricia, you work for us. And if you're giving away our jobs, you're doing a disservice to the people that you represent. Okay? And Anthony, I'm going to put it all together. The reason they want to take your guns is so that they can leave you defenseless, so that you cannot defend yourself against a tyrannical government. I know I'm going outside the box, but honestly, that's the bottom line.
Frank, if I could say one thing, is that the corporate America that I grew up in, I'm a child I was born in the 50s, and my father was a World War II greatest generation guy. Corporate America in mid-century is not corporate America today. Corporate America was patriotic. It hired American, paid taxes. It was concerned with more than just the shareholder value. And something's gone sour in corporate America that has turned it this way, turned against its own American citizens, for employees and for serving the country and serving the national interest. They have other things in mind, and this has got to change.
Absolutely. Bob, a little story that I'm going to tell everybody here. In the 1920s, a man named Milton Hershey found that the country was going through a large depression. Okay, so Milton Hershey decided to build an opulent hotel, okay, next door to his Hershey Foods company, candy company, and he built the Hershey Hotel. And I don't know if any of you have been there. It's probably the most opulent hotel I've ever seen in America, and I've been to very many of them. And it's in the middle of nowhere, okay? And back then it was further in the middle of nowhere. And the reason he built the hotel was because to keep people working. He wanted to keep people working. And one of the stories in the hotel was that Milton Hershey was building a hotel, and his foreman came up to him and said, "I bought 2 steam shovels. It does the work of 30 men." Now, today, what would our corporate executives say? Oh, great, I can save money. Milton Hershey said, get rid of that thing and hire the 30 men. That is corporate responsibility today. And unfortunately, we don't have it in business today. Tricia, I know you could talk about this.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that what we're talking about, we're seeing all of the problems that have been teed up by the failed liberal Democrat policies that we're now living the fruits of. And, you know, the beauty part is that there are solutions at the ready. And again, we have to have legislators who are willing to fight for those solutions. What have we had in recent years? We've had Democrats that have given more of the same, and we've had, unfortunately, some lukewarm Republicans that haven't fought strenuously enough. The solutions are there. The answer is America. The answer is the land of the free and the home of the brave. The answer is just what you're talking about, re-energizing and revitalizing all of that passion and all of those answers that are baked into protecting our Constitution, going back to our Declaration of Independence. The government gets its power from the consent of the governed. Well, we've abdicated that, sadly. And this is our chance to get ready to roar. I go back to 2020 as being both the opportunity and the solution, because what we have to do is we have to get to the voting booth. We have a low voter turnout. We have people who are not using their vote to its fullest capacity. But that can change on July 7th, and that will make all the difference on November 3rd. Cory Booker must go, and he will go when we all unite and vote with one loud voice. And that is a solution that will change everything for all America. Let's lead the way, New Jersey.
Tricia, before I give you the floor to close, I'd like to ask any of our other guests today if they have any final comments. Would love to have you. All of you were extremely wonderful today. This has been a evening of detailed information, of brilliance, of American brilliance. One last thing, Tricia will probably say that your opponent, Mr. Mehta, is not a firm believer in America First labor. Let's put it that way. Some of you out there have that idea. But before we go back to you, Tricia, for your final comments, Lieutenant Rogers, do you have some final parting words on your behalf? You're on mute, sir.
How's that?
That's perfect.
I could tell you that Ronald Reagan talked about a shining city on a hill. And we got to keep that city shining, and we've got to get Tricia Flanagan elected to the U.S. Senate to make sure that truly, and believe me, she gets elected, and I believe she has a heck of a shot, and we got to work hard. But she gets elected, that light is going to be like the shot heard around the world. So let's get rolling and do what we have to do to keep that shining city on a hill well lit.
Thank you, Lieutenant Rogers. Mary Ann, do you have any parting words?
First of all, I just want to say thank you for inviting me to be on this forum. I look at all of your faces. I'm proud to be amongst you and stand with you to make our country great again. Keep it going on the path forward that our president has placed us on. And I just really feel a sense of patriotism with all of you, and God bless you all, and stay in this fight. We've got to keep our country the way that our founding fathers intended it to be.
Thank you very much, Virginia. Mary Ann. Virginia, you're going to make us cry again? Go ahead.
Not this time. But I do want to say that listening to all of you, like Mary Ann, I'm proud to have been among you. I've learned a lot of things tonight that I didn't know, and that we have to get behind candidates like Tricia if we want to be able to stop this evil that is overtaking our country. And we all have the power to do that, and we can do that at the ballot box on July 7th and again on November 3rd, and we can take back this country, restore the security and safety for American families, and bring back the prosperity that has been stolen from us by poor politicians and poor policies. So, everyone just get out there, make sure you exercise your rights and vote.
Anthony, do you have some parting words for us?
Yes, a couple of things. Number one, the Second Amendment was not written for hunting. Our founding fathers wrote the Second Amendment because they just got done fighting a tyrannical king. So I want everybody to remember that. If you were to write a Christmas list or a Hanukkah list right now when you were 7 years old, you would put the most important thing first, the second item you wanted second, and so on. The Second Amendment is second for a reason, okay? And the last thing is, for all of you politicians out there, if you're giving a speech and you say, I believe in the Second Amendment, but you're done. You've lost us all, okay? Once you add that but, we're disconnected with you. So keep that in mind, please.
I love the
God
words
bless you all.
I love the words of Trey Gaddy when he was interviewing someone and asked the person that, okay, so what other right in the Constitution, okay, will you take away and put a but after? Okay, would it be freedom of speech? Well, let me tell you, this whole thing about hate speech, okay, is a way to diminish the freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is freedom of speech, whether it's hate speech or whatever. Okay. Voltaire said that, I may not like what you say, but I will defend your right to the death to say it. Okay. And that's what our country was built on. So I think it's very important. Thank you very much, Anthony. I appreciate your time. Michael, any parting words for you?
Yeah, I wanted to say that in the STEM field, there's quite a few people that aren't happy with some of the stuff that President Trump hasn't done enough for the STEM workers. But I think part of his problem is we don't have enough America First candidates to stand with him to get the job done. Give him 4 more years and get Tricia and more America First candidates, and we will see these visa programs slowed down drastically.
I agree. And unfortunately, Barack Obama said elections have consequences, and people need to understand the consequences of not voting for an America First agenda. Let's just be honest.
Well said.
Okay, Bob, I'm gonna have you go last because I want you to introduce Tricia so Tricia can take it away. And Bob, you're on mute right now. So let's get you off mute. And
hey, Frank, thank you for having me on this evening with such a group of distinguished guests here. I'm running with Tricia on the same, what they call it, the same bracket, the same line. We're on the American First Republican lines in South Jersey. She's got that line through the entire state. So I'm here to introduce Tricia and thank her for inviting me on the program. And we're going to win on July the 7th here, win our primaries. Tricia?
And I wish I could grab your hand, Bob, and raise it up high in intended victory. Thank you all. Thank you, Frank, and thank you to New Right Network for hosting this amazing event. Thank you to the American people for tuning in. We've taken a long journey tonight through all of the issues that we have to address. The slate is full, but thank goodness the solutions are ready and they're many. And that first step, as we've been talking about all through this evening, is to get out and vote. I have always believed that if you want to do great things, keep company with great people. And I am so honored and so blessed to be amongst this greatness tonight. I'm truly overwhelmed, but we will not make this for naught. We will fulfill the question that we have right now is, what kind of America do we want to see after the 2020 election? We can't let this incredible energy, this incredible greatness that we've heard tonight, we can't let it fall to nothing. We have to see it through to its conclusion, to its full end. And that means establishing an empowered Congress, everything we've talked about tonight. We have to get President Trump that MAGA majority that he is going to need to fully accomplish America's agenda. I believe with my entire heart and soul that President Trump will be reelected this November. And I am going to do everything I can to make sure that that happens. But when we get that full-throated, full-throttled American Congress, and we put that together with President Trump, it's sort of like, for those of you that are children of the 70s, it's like Wonder Twin power activated. We will accomplish the superhero goals that we have talked about tonight. The task is upon us. The road is ahead of us. It will not be easy, but together we will have that greatness. We will achieve that end, and we will not only make America great again. We won't just keep it great, but we will have an America First agenda that makes all the difference. I thank you, my friends. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to this journey. Let's stay together. Let's stick together. Let's vote together, and we will get there. So thank you. Again, God bless you. God bless New Jersey. God bless our great president, and God bless the USA. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hey, if you've got a paper ballot, fill out that paper ballot and get it in the mail. Okay? Do you have mail? I'm not sure if you have mail in New Jersey right now.
The ballots go out this Saturday. So next week, everybody should get the ballots next week.
Make sure that you get that ballot in. Your voice counts. It really does. Get that paper ballot, fill it out, and support Bob and Tricia for their roles in making and keeping America great again. For NewRightNetwork.com, NRMPlus.com/live. I'm Frank D'Onofrio. I enjoyed this very much. I enjoyed this rally. This is the America First rally on NRMPlus.com. Thank you very much. Take it away, Obi.
You a gift so you can fight properly. Red Bull.
Oh, how nice
of you.
But also
rather
stupid.
Mine. No, mine.
No, mine.
Mine. Mine. Red Bull gives you wings.